Okay, cool, whatever. Click.
What? This is how we are.
You know, why don't they just let you skip through all this stuff? There's no, I don't care about the lore. I don't care any of this. Just give me the quest. Let me, man, I really want just like a button to skip all this crap. Lore in games. It with some people it can be a little bit of a sore subject, but I don't. I think part of that is because people are looking at it as this like unskippable cutscenes, unskippable text, and not actually looking at it as the actual world in which you are inhabiting. This right here, this little website is probably the starting point for my understanding of lore, and it was something that kind of dominated my childhood. It is probably one of the largest reasons why I know no Spanish whatsoever. This little website was what opened me up to learning about lore and learning about how a video game can be just as rich and rewarding as a book or a movie. Lore is so much more than just that quest text that, you know, for the 5 millionth time you're trying to kill 15 rats for so and so in the city. Lore is actually well, here, you know what? Let's go with a description of what lore is. Right there. So Merriam-Webster dictionary says lore is a particular body of knowledge or tradition, like the lore of baseball heroes, sorry. Number 2, something that is learned, tradition, knowledge, or belief, or knowledge gained through study or experience, or something that is taught. The way that I choose to interpret that when it comes to lore in video games is not so much something taught or anything like that, but something that creates the world you are inhabiting. It is in almost every sense, the world that you're inhabiting with a video game is a created world. Now, the similarities between our world and the game world will vary from game to game, but the actual lore itself is what is a bigger part of why we're playing the game in the first place than I think we give credit in some ways. There's definitely, you know, talk of gameplay and the importance of that and everything, but the reason why we want to play a game is generally not going to be solely gameplay. Because if it was solely gameplay, you could very easily just play a, tech demo. You play a tech demo, you get the same experience. But the reason why lore is important is because it gives meaning to the things you're doing. And specifically in an MMO, massive multiplayer online game, lore is creating the world that you are entering as a participant. Now, this is very different from story. Story being more like a personal narrative or an overarching story through whatever game you're playing, whatever world you're playing. What I'm talking about specifically is the environment in which you are experiencing. Why does it matter what class you are? Why does it matter what race you are? Why does it matter what city you start your journey in? Why does it matter completing that quest? What's the point of going to that dungeon? What is the history behind that dungeon? There are so many different things that we just kind of take for granted in gaming as being just window dressing. But it's not just window dressing. It is something that makes the game feel more real and more exciting. That is, to me, what lore is. Lore is everything about the game that helps you suspend disbelief and enjoy being part of it. It helps you enter into a different place, especially in things like MMOs and role-playing games where you are trying to not necessarily take on a different role, but advance a story as this persona of who you are. And it doesn't necessarily matter what you're doing within the game. Lore will be present in whatever you're doing. Let's take an example of, like a quest is kind of obvious, right? Quest, raid, PvE encounters, that kind of lore is very front and center. The reason why you as the character would be doing something is going to be based on the lore. Good example of that would be in EverQuest when you are in Planes of Power, which is, there's a whole system, like there's a whole history of why and how you got to that point, what you are doing, what your raid is trying to accomplish. It is not just, running in and killing something for funsies. It's literally you are accomplishing something because of things that have been going on long before you started in the game and will continue long after you are no longer part of the game. You are part of a larger story, part of the lore, all the things that come into play. And there's all these micro things about the lore that are happening at the same time. But there's another part that I want to point out with a completely different type of gameplay. PvP. So player versus player. One of those, like, it seems to be one of those things that really lore may not have played too much of a role in it. But if you look at WoW, I think is World of Warcraft, it's probably one of the better examples of lore directly feeding into a competitive gameplay experience. In World of Warcraft, you have an entire PvP structure that is built on lore. It is a structure that is built on this long-standing history and tradition of Alliance versus Horde, and it's something that players really get into, for the Horde and for the Alliance. It becomes something that they want to be a part of. And the only reason they want to be a part of is not because they press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in the right order, but because there is a lore to it. There is a structure, a history, a story that you are a part of. You are part of the Horde. You are part of the Alliance, and you want to do your part. That's not to say that, the hitting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the right order is not a huge and integral part of that gameplay. It is. It 100% is. That's the thing. Lore and gameplay, they work together. They are not mutually exclusive. They are two components that create this wonderful thing that we all enjoy so much, where the lore can be done completely in the background and we can focus on the gameplay. But the lore is still there. The lore is setting the game apart from other games like it. The lore is creating this background, this stage dressing for us to enjoy without even really thinking about it too much. You don't have to sit and read quest text to enjoy lore. You don't have to watch lore videos. Although if you do want to watch lore videos, I would highly, highly recommend Chris Kane, Theric. Great, wonderful lore videos. But besides the point, you don't have to dig that deep into lore to actually enjoy it. You enjoy the lore just by logging into a game, because it is impossible to miss it. If it's done subtly and it's done in a great way, you will internalize all those things and it will enhance your gameplay. It'll enhance the joy you get of leaving this behind for just a little while to jump into another world and enjoy being part of that for a time, to enjoy having a different role, to enjoy being a Death Knight, to enjoy being a necromancer, to enjoy being a druid. It is one of those things that you embody the lore when you play the game, because you know the lore. Not all of it. You don't have to know every detail, but you know enough to know what is going on in some ways. It's a whole other thing when you're talking about a single player game, which has both strong lore and strong narrative and single player story. And then there's also MMOs that try and combine those to varying levels of success. But long story short, I feel like lore is underappreciated and you probably enjoy it more than you think you do.